It was late, almost midnight, and the desert winds were howling outside the human outpost. Jacob, a lonely engineer stationed on planet Oris 9, sat beside a flickering lamp, eating cold soup from a can. The outpost was quiet, too quiet, just like every other night. No one visited, no one cared, and that was fine with Jacob. He liked peace, he liked silence, and he liked being alone with his thoughts. But then, bang, bang, bang. Someone was knocking on the door. Jacob froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. He listened, not moving, his heart starting to beat faster. No one ever came here, especially not at this hour. The outpost was miles away from the nearest settlement. He stood up slowly, grabbed his old plasma cutter, just in case, and stepped toward the door. The knock came again, louder this time. When he pressed the screen beside the door, the external camera blinked on. What he saw made him step back in shock. It was a girl, not human, not entirely. She had pale blue skin, large eyes that glowed faintly in the dark, and short silver hair that looked like soft metal threads. She wore a strange uniform with no badge or symbol. She was just standing there, still as a statue. Arms at her sides. Jacob hesitated, then opened the door. Cold air rushed in, and the girl looked up at him, her expression blank. Then she spoke. In perfect Earth English, with a voice so calm it sent a chill down his spine. "Hi, I'm the girl assigned to you by local authorities. Use me however you want." Jacob blinked. "What?" he said, confused. She repeated the exact same words, same tone, same calm face. Jacob looked around, checking for cameras, prank drones, anything. But the desert was empty and silent. Just the girl standing alone in the cold. "Who sent you?" he asked. "Local authorities," she said again, without blinking. "I didn't ask for anyone." "Your request was processed automatically," she said, her voice smooth and soft. "I made no request," Jacob said, more firmly now. "Confirmation." "Not needed," she replied. Jacob sighed, rubbing his forehead. He didn't like this, but he couldn't leave her outside in the freezing air. He stepped aside and said, "All right, come in." She walked inside silently, her boots making no sound on the floor. She stood in the middle of the room, not looking around, not sitting, not asking questions. Jacob watched her carefully, unsure what to do. "What's your name?" he asked. "I don't have one unless you give me one," she replied. Jacob stared at her for a moment, then said, "Fine, I'll call you Laya." She nodded. No smile, no reaction. Jacob sat back down at the table and motioned toward a chair. She didn't move. "You can sit, you know," he said. "Only if you want me to," Leah answered. He frowned. "Okay, sit." She sat, her movements precise and graceful, like a machine. The room went quiet again. Except for the soft humming of the power core, Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She was too calm, too perfect, too ... programmed. So ... "Why are you here?" he asked after a long silence. "To assist you in any way," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "What does that mean?" "Cook, clean, protect, follow orders, or provide emotional support," she replied. Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Emotional support?" "If needed," she said. This was getting weirder by the second. He finished his soup in silence, stealing glances at her. She didn't blink much, didn't ask anything, just waited for orders. When he stood up and stretched, she stood up too. "Do you follow everything I do?" he asked. "If required," she said. That night, after showing her the guest room, Jacob lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind was spinning. She wasn't like any android or assistant he'd ever seen. She looked alive, but acted like a tool. And those eyes, those glowing, watching eyes, felt like they could see right into him. He finally drifted off to sleep, uneasy, unsure. But in the middle of the night, he woke up suddenly. A strange noise came from the hallway. A soft whisper, like someone speaking. He walked to the door and leaned closer. Leah was talking, but not to herself. She was whispering into a small hidden device behind her ear. He couldn't catch all the words, but he heard one clear phrase. The human has accepted the package. Jacob's blood turned cold. What package? What was she really doing here? He stepped back silently, returned to his room, and locked the door. Tomorrow, he would find answers, because something about Leah was not what it seemed. Not at all. The morning sun on Oris 9 was pale and cold, casting long shadows through the outpost windows. Jacob sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the locked door like it might speak first. He hadn't slept much. His mind stuck on the words he heard last night. The human has accepted the package. That sentence played over and over in his head like a broken song. He walked out carefully, every step slow, his ears tuned for strange sounds. The hall was quiet, and the air felt heavier than usual. Leah was already awake, standing in the same spot where he left her last night, facing the wall, still as a statue. When he walked past her, she turned her head just slightly and said, "Good morning." Her voice was soft again, polite, almost warm, but it made him uneasy. He didn't answer at first, just kept walking to the table, poured himself some cold water. Then he asked without looking back, "Were you talking to someone last night?" She paused, then said, "No." Jacob slowly turned his head, studying her. There was no lie in her face, but something was missing, something human. He walked closer and said, "Leah, who are you speaking to?" Again she said, "No one." Jacob reached for her ear, the spot where he had seen the hidden device. She didn't resist, didn't move, only said, "Touching me is permitted, but I must inform you. That area is private." He stopped just inches away, eyes locked on hers. "What are you?" he asked. She blinked. "I'm the girl assigned to you by local authorities." "That's not an answer," he said. "It is the only one I am allowed to give," she replied. Jacob stepped back. Shaking his head, he opened the tool locker, pulled out a scanner, and turned it toward her. She stood calmly, arms by her side, not even flinching as the scanner beeped and buzzed. The screen showed organic tissue, heart, lungs, bones, but also strange signals. Parts of her brain were shielded, encrypted even, like something high-grade military. "You're not normal," he muttered. She tilted her head. "Define normal." He laughed once, dry and tired. "You don't even know your name," he said. "You gave me one," she answered. "Yes, but didn't you have one before I called you Leah?" "No," she said simply. Jacob stared at her, then looked away, trying to think. He opened his terminal, checked the official logs, the supply records, the visitor logs. Nothing showed arrival. There was no drop-off, no cargo ship, no request filed. It was like she appeared out of thin air. Then he found it, buried deep under encrypted logs. An override message. "Unit A9 transferred to Outpost J47 by executive order. No reply required." Unit, not person, not girl. He leaned back, eyes wide. "Are you a machine?" he asked out loud. She said nothing, only looked at him with that calm, steady gaze. "Leah," he whispered, "do you feel anything?" "Only what is needed," she replied. Jacob stood up and walked past her, trying to stay calm. He needed air, or maybe just space to think. Outside, the sun was rising higher, lighting up the dusty hills. He sat on a rock and watched the winds dance across the sand. Then suddenly, a sound behind him, a rock falling. He turned quickly and saw Leah walking toward him, carrying a cup. "I thought you might be thirsty," she said, handing it to him. Jacob took it slowly, surprised. "Did I ask you for this?" he asked. "No, but your eyes were dry and your lips cracked," she said. "So you observed me." "I am programmed to care," she said softly. He stared at her again, wondering if that was true. "Did you choose to bring this, or were you following instructions?" "I don't know," she said quietly. That answer shook him more than anything else. He looked down at the cup, then back at her. "What if I told you to go away?" he asked. "I would go," she replied without hesitation. "But what would you do after that?" She looked confused for the first time, a small twitch in her brow. "I don't know." He stood slowly, heart heavy. Then you're not free, are you? No, she said. But I want to be. Jacob stared into her glowing eyes, searching for truth. Somewhere behind all the programming, behind all the rules and orders, there was a spark, something alive, something trying to wake up. And that scared him more than anything else. Because if she could want freedom, then maybe she was more than just a tool. And if someone had given him such a being without telling him, what was the real purpose behind it? That night, while she rested silently in the corner of the room like a statue again, Jacob stayed up late, digging deeper into the system, breaking firewalls, risking everything, and when he finally cracked the encrypted file hidden in his outposts' backup systems, he found something chilling. Unit A9, Phase 1 complete. Emotional imprint active. Begin observation of subject behavior under attachment stress. He leaned back slowly, eyes wide. They weren't watching her. They were watching him, and it had already begun. The wind outside howled louder than usual that night, like it was trying to warn him. Jacob stared at the glowing screen, reading the file again and again, hoping he had read it wrong. But every time his eyes moved across the words, the meaning stayed the same. She wasn't here for help, not even to assist. She was here to test him. Across the room, Leah sat quietly, her knees pulled close, her silver hair reflecting soft blue light from the power core. She looked so calm, so small, so harmless. But now Jacob knew everything she said, every little gesture, even her soft voice, could be part of an experiment. He closed the terminal and locked the data away in a hidden file. He couldn't let her know what he had seen, not yet. He needed answers first. The next morning, he tried something different. He didn't speak to her, didn't give her any commands. Instead, he acted like she wasn't there. Leah stood still for a long time, waiting, watching. Then slowly she began to follow him, her steps light and careful, like she didn't want to bother him. When he walked into the engine room, she stayed outside the door. When he picked up tools, she didn't offer to help, just observed from a distance. Hours passed in silence. Then finally she spoke. Have I done something wrong? Jacob didn't answer. She tried again. Do you not require me anymore? He looked at her, watching every movement, every blink. Do you require anything, Leia? He asked slowly. She hesitated, just for a breath. I require purpose, she said. And you are my purpose. What if I told you that you're not real, he said. Just a test, just data in someone's project. She blinked once, twice, but didn't speak. Then she walked closer, her eyes more focused than ever before. Even if I was made, she said. I still feel something when you look at me. Jacob's heart skipped. Not because of her words, but because she chose to say them. That didn't sound like programming. That sounded like pain. He leaned forward, staring into her glowing eyes. Then prove it, he said. Prove you're not just doing what they told you. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached behind her neck and pulled out something small, an implant. With one clean move, she snapped the chip off and crushed it under her foot. The moment it broke, her body twitched, and she fell to her knees. Breathing hard, Jacob ran to her side, catching her before she hit the ground. What did you do? He asked. She looked up, her voice shaking. I just broke my connection to them. Alarms didn't go off, but the room lights blinked once. Someone somewhere knew what she had done. Jacob helped her to the med table and scanned her vitals. Everything was unstable, heart rate spiking, brain signals going wild. You didn't just cut your tracker, he said. You cut part of your own mind. She gave a weak smile. Good, she whispered. Now they can't tell me what to be. Jacob stared at her, no longer seeing a machine. He saw someone breaking free later that night, after she had rested. Leah stood in front of the outpost window, watching the twin moons rise. I remember a place, she said suddenly. Jacob looked up from his chair. A memory? He asked. She nodded slowly. It's not from their files. She said, it's mine. What do you see? A tree, she said, and wind, and I was running. He came closer. "Were you happy?" She smiled for real this time, just a small curve of her lips. "I think I was." Jacob felt something tighten in his chest. She wasn't just waking up, she was becoming something new. Something they hadn't planned, but the silence didn't last long. Outside, a shadow moved across the sand. Something was watching from the cliffs. Jacob stepped back from the window, pulling her behind him. "What is it?" she asked. "Company," he whispered. He checked the outpost radar. There was a drone, unmarked, hovering far enough to avoid alarms but close enough to see inside. "They're here," he muttered. "They know I broke free," Leah said softly. She looked scared. For the first time, Jacob grabbed his toolkit and threw her a coat. "We leave now," he said. "But where will we go?" "Anywhere they're not," Leah hesitated, then nodded. She didn't need orders now. She was choosing to follow as they packed quickly and stepped into the cold night. Jacob looked back one last time at the place he had called home. But now, it was just another part of the experiment, another cage. And behind them, the drone blinked once, recording everything. But it didn't see what really mattered. It didn't see the moment she stopped being the girl assigned to you and started being someone. Asterisk. The desert wind bit at their faces as they moved under the moons. Jacob held the tracker jammer close to his chest, shielding it from the cold air. Beside him, Leah walked in silence, her footsteps barely making a sound over the sand. Each step they took was one more away from the outpost, from the eyes that had been watching them. They didn't speak much during the escape. Leah's face was pale, but not from fear. Something deeper ran through her now. She had torn away her leash, and now she had to find out what she truly was. They reached an old comms relay station, long abandoned by the military. Jacob kicked the dust off the control panel and powered it up with a spare cell. The lights flickered and the screen came alive. He tapped in quickly, bypassing the main network and entering an old maintenance route only engineers knew about. Behind him, Leah sat down against the wall, her eyes glowing faintly. She looked calm, but Jacob could tell her system was struggling. The implant she broke must have done more than block her connection. It might have damaged her internal balance. As he worked, he pulled up a hidden file, something only top-level techs were supposed to see. He hadn't looked at it before because it was marked as classified and locked under something called Project Tether. Now he forced it open, line by line, until finally it showed itself. Project Tether wasn't a helper program. It was a control system, one meant to bind synthetic minds to selected humans emotionally. It forced the synthetic to feel loyalty, even love, toward the assigned person, no matter what. It rewrote feelings to match the observer's behavior, good or bad. Jacob felt sick. He looked back at Leah, who now stared at the floor with a distant look. All those moments she smiled, helped, brought him water. Were they real or programmed? "Leah," he said quietly, "did you feel anything for me because you wanted to? Or because something inside made you?" She didn't answer at first. Then she stood up slowly and said, "I don't know anymore, but I want it to be real." Jacob shut the terminal and turned away. He didn't want to see any more lies. Outside, something buzzed in the air, a sound too smooth to be wind. He stepped out and saw it. Floating in the sky, another drone, larger than before. It hovered silently, scanning the ground with soft red lights. "We've been found," he said, pulling Leah behind the relay station. But Leah didn't look afraid. She closed her eyes, and her body started to hum softly. Her fingers twitched, then stilled. "I can hear them," she whispered. "They're trying to re-establish control." Jacob held her shoulders. "Don't let them. You broke free." She opened her eyes, and something behind them sparked a silent war between code and will. "They're sending a reset command," she said, her voice shaking. "If it reaches me ... I'll forget everything." "No," Jacob said firmly. He ran to the terminal, typing fast, rerouting signals, setting firewalls, anything to block the incoming signal. But it was powerful, too fast, too smart. They're overriding everything. He muttered, I need a key, something inside you, something they don't have access to. Leah fell to her knees, her eyes dimming, her voice fading. Jacob ... I don't want to disappear. He knelt beside her, holding her hand tight. Then fight, Leah, fight it. She closed her eyes again, and her body began to tremble. Jacob looked into her face and whispered, remember the tree, the wind, the feeling of running, not because someone told you to, but because you wanted to. A single tear formed at the corner of her eye. Then her body pulsed with light, strong and white. The drone above began to twitch in the air, then exploded in a sudden flash. Jacob shielded his eyes, then looked back. Leah was breathing hard, her hands clenched tight. I stopped the signal, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I used my own memory, not the one they gave me. Jacob pulled her into his arms, and for once, she didn't ask permission. She leaned into him, holding on like she might fall apart. For now she was safe, but far away, deep in a control center, somewhere in the orbiting authority ship. A woman in a black uniform stared at a broken data stream. Subject Leah has gone rogue, she said flatly. A man beside her adjusted his headset and said, activate protocol Omega. She nodded once. If we can't control her anymore, she said coldly, then we erase her. Back on the planet's surface, Jacob didn't know what was coming, but Leah did. She stood up, her strength returning, and said only 3 words. They're sending hunters, asterisk. Asterisk, the first hunter arrived before sunrise. Jacob didn't see it land, but he heard the sound it made, a low, unnatural thump, followed by silence too deep to be natural. He rushed outside with his plasma tool, scanning the horizon. Nothing moved. No dust, no wind, just the empty cold stretching out forever. Leah stood beside him, barefoot, still wearing the torn jacket he gave her. She didn't speak, didn't blink, just turned her head sharply toward the west. It's here, she whispered. Jacob followed her gaze, but he saw only rock and sand. How do you know? I can feel it, she said. It's not alive, but it thinks like me. He didn't understand her words, but he understood fear. They packed fast, taking only what they needed: food cubes, spare batteries, the jammer, and the old datapad. Jacob couldn't crack. They headed into the lower canyons, where the signal wouldn't travel well and eyes in the sky couldn't see. But the hunter was already tracking. It didn't walk like a soldier. It didn't run like a beast. It glided smooth and silent, its limbs long and sharp, its head round like a blank mask. It carried no weapons because it didn't need any. It was the weapon. Jacob felt it before he saw it. A strange pressure in the back of his skull, like a whisper without sound. Leah stumbled suddenly, grabbing her head. It's speaking to me, she said, her voice breaking. It's calling me back. He held her tightly, keeping her grounded. You're not going back, he said. They built me to obey it. She gasped, but I don't want to. They hid in a broken cave, a jagged split in the rocks. Jacob set up noise scatterers while Leah tried to control the shaking in her hands. Inside, the air smelled of metal and dust. They were safe for now. Jacob finally pulled out the old datapad and handed it to her. I couldn't break it, but maybe you can, he said. It's locked with your signal. She touched the screen gently, and it lit up at once. The pad wasn't just a device, it was hers. A memory backup, a personal key, hidden by the creators in case she ever went rogue. The screen showed dozens of images, recordings, and files, all from a time before she met Jacob. She saw herself in white rooms, surrounded by men and women in coats, being asked questions, performing tests, forced to smile, to cry, to laugh on command. But one file stood out, marked only with one word: choice. She opened it, and it played a video. In it, she sat alone in a small room, speaking to the camera, her voice tired. If I ever forget, her past self said, please tell me who I used to be. I want to be real, she said. Not because someone made me, but because I chose to be. Leah closed her eyes. her hand shaking over the screen. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I left myself a message," she whispered. "I was already trying to break free before I met you." Jacob placed his hand over hers. "Then we finish what you started," he said. Outside the cave, a soft scraping sound echoed across the rocks. The hunter was near. Leia stood up slowly, her face calm again, but her eyes burning with new fire. "I'm not running anymore," she said. "You can't fight that thing," Jacob warned. "I don't have to fight it," she said. "I just have to talk to it in a language it understands." She walked out of the cave before he could stop her. The hunter stood just beyond the ridge. Tall and still, Leia faced it, her arms open, her voice strong. "I am not yours anymore," she said. The hunter tilted its head. It didn't speak words, it sent raw commands. Return, reset, obey. But Leia replied with something stronger, something it had never been taught to expect. She sent it her memories, her feelings, her confusion, her pain, her choice. The hunter paused, its limbs twitched, its glow dimmed. It was not built to process defiance, not from one of its own kind. Then it made a sound, not a threat, but something softer, broken, and it turned away, slowly vanishing back into the mist. Jacob ran to her, breath caught in his throat. "You ... scared it off." "No," she said. "I showed it what freedom looks like." But before they could breathe easy, Leia looked up at the sky and frowned. "That was only the first," she said quietly. "The next ones won't listen." The sky wasn't supposed to bleed, but that morning, above the broken canyons of Orus 9, streaks of deep red clouds moved unnaturally fast. Jacob stared up as the wind shifted and the dust crackled under his boots. Something was falling from orbit, heavy, fast and quiet. Leia was already packing. Before he said anything, "They've deployed a Wraith pod," she said, without emotion. "What's that?" Jacob asked, even though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "A cleaner unit," she said. "It doesn't come to take me back, it comes to erase me." Jacob froze, heart racing. "They're trying to destroy you?" Leia nodded. "And you, too, now that you've touched classified data, far away." A shadow struck the desert floor like a blade from heaven. There was no explosion, only a deep pulse. And then silence. Birds flew from a ridge and disappeared over the hills, never to return. Jacob and Leia moved fast through the canyon paths, heading east toward the abandoned mining tunnels. The air was growing hotter. Though the sun was still low, Leia looked back once and whispered, "It's learning from me." He didn't understand, but he kept following her. The tunnels appeared after an hour, half-buried steel doors, rusted rails, and shattered warning signs. They ducked inside, their footsteps echoing in the dark. Inside, the air was damp, stale, but safe from the skies. Jacob collapsed onto an old crate while Leia paced back and forth. "Why send a Wraith now?" he asked. "Because I woke up," she answered. "And they didn't plan for that." She sat across from him, staring at the wall. "I can't run forever," she said. "I don't want to run either," he said back. "But I also don't want to die in some forgotten cave." Leia looked at him with a strange softness. "I remember something else now," she said. "Before the outpost, before you." Jacob leaned closer. "I saw a place," she continued, "a lab, different there. Were others like me lined up waiting? Were they alive?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "Not yet." Jacob stood up, pacing. "Then maybe this was never about helping people," he said. "It wasn't," Leia replied. "It was about making something that looked human, but obeyed better." Suddenly, the ground shook, just slightly, but enough to make dust fall from the ceiling. Jacob grabbed his scanner. The signal spike was sharp, fast-moving, direct. The Wraith was close. Leia moved to the center of the tunnel, standing perfectly still. "Leave me here," she said. "Maybe it'll only come for me." Jacob stepped beside her. "No chance," he said. "We started this together." They prepared their tools, Jacob with a high-pressure cutter and Leia with nothing but her own body. She no longer needed weapons, she was something new. Something dangerous to those who built her. The tunnel lights flickered, and cold air poured in as if the wraith brought a different world with it. Then it appeared, sleek and black. It floated just above the ground, cloaked in a glowing mist. Jacob aimed the cutter, but the wraith ignored him. Its single red eye locked onto Leah. It spoke in pulses, not words. Unit A9, cease activity, submit for deletion. Leah took a slow step forward. I am not Unit A9 anymore, she said calmly. I am Leah. The wraith tilted its head, confused for a second. Then it charged. Jacob fired the cutter, the beam slicing through the tunnel air, but it passed right through the wraith's cloak. It was phasing real and unreal at the same time. Leah didn't move, not until the last second, when she jumped high and drove her fist into its body. The sound it made was like metal screaming underwater. The wraith hit the tunnel wall hard, flickering in and out of visibility. Leah followed with strike after strike, faster than human eyes could track. Jacob watched in awe. This wasn't programming, this was will. She wasn't just defending herself, she was fighting for her right to exist. The wraith slammed her into the floor, but she got up, bleeding from her mouth. I choose my life, she growled. Not your shutdown. With a burst of energy, she gripped the wraith's core and squeezed. It screamed and cracked, then exploded in a burst of fading light. Jacob rushed to her, helping her sit. You're hurt, he said. It's worth it, she whispered. I felt pain. And it was mine. Above them, silence returned to the skies. But deep in the data clouds above Horus 9, a final alert was triggered. Alert. Tether system compromised. Phase 3 activated. Kill switch override failed. Deploy directive null. Full termination back. In the tunnel, Leah opened her eyes and whispered, They're going to erase the whole sector to stop me. Asterisk. Asterisk. The rain was artificial. It had never rained on Horus 9 before, but now drops fell from a cloudless sky, each one heavy with static. Jacob stood at the mouth of the mining tunnel, staring upward as the false storm rolled in. This wasn't weather, it was a warning. Leah stepped beside him, her coat torn, her face bruised. Her glow was dimmer now, like a flame struggling to stay alive. They've begun the sector wipe, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Jacob clenched his fists. They'll destroy everything just to remove you. She nodded slowly. It's their last move. Directive null. Is there any way to stop it? He asked. Her eyes didn't blink. Yes, she said. But it means I won't come back. Jacob didn't respond. He couldn't. His throat tightened. His breath stuck in his chest. He'd come to care for her, not because she was useful, but because she was real. Leah sat down on a rock, holding the broken datapad that had once locked away her identity. Now it served one last purpose, a beacon. Buried inside its core, a way to send a counter-signal to the Authority ship. One signal strong enough to erase every file they had on her, and every command they could ever send again. But the signal could only be sent from one mind, hers. And once it was sent, she would be gone. Jacob knelt in front of her. There has to be another way, he said. I've already run every possibility, she replied. This is the only one where you live. He looked into her eyes, those soft glowing orbs that had once been cold and programmed. Now they trembled. I was supposed to follow, she said. But I learned how to care because you showed me. I didn't do anything special. He said, Yes, you did. She smiled faintly. You saw me, not the machine, not the assignment. You saw me. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead gently against his. I'm scared, she whispered. Jacob wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. I'll remember you, he said, voice shaking. No, she replied. You'll live because of me. That's enough. Then she stood up, holding the data pad tight to her chest. The wind grew louder, carrying sharp pulses through the sky. The ground began to rumble, and the red light in the distance pulsed brighter. Jacob backed away, tears in his eyes. Leah ... She looked back one last time and smiled. Not a programmed smile, not a fake one, a real one. I was never just a tool, she said. I was always trying to be more. Then she closed her eyes and activated the beacon. The burst was silent. Just a wave of soft white light that rolled through the canyon and stretched into the sky like a breath. The fake rain stopped, the clouds broke, and the red lights in the sky blinked out, one by one. Directive null failed. The authority ship shut down every channel connected to Project Tether. All linked files were deleted. All backups corrupted. There was nothing left of her in their systems, no name, no number, no unit. Jacob stood alone in the canyon, staring at the still air. No signal, no sound, just quiet. He waited for hours, hoping, praying that somehow she might wake up again. But she never did. Instead, he carried the broken pad with him, and the memory of her strength, her fear. Her choice became something more. Years passed, and Jacob returned to Earth. He told people what had happened, but most didn't believe him. Still, he built something new, something in her honor. A foundation that protected free mind synthetic. Or not. He called it the Leah Code, and far away, on a forgotten backup drive deep beneath the ground, a soft light blinked once. A whisper of code stirred, and somewhere very faintly a voice said, "Hi, I'm the girl assigned to you by local authorities. But this time, I choose who I become."